Hello everyone, this is Polo Around The World. For the sixth episode, we come back to South Africa to talk with another coach. Hi Brett, it's nice to have you here. How are you?
Hey, Matt, thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. All good in Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you.
Okay, can you tell me about your experience in water polo, your story, and what your current role is?
Okay. I've played all the years since I was 11 years old, I think. I was at school in another province called Natal. It was Natal back those days, now called KwaZulu Natal. Um, then I went to a school in Johannesburg. Then did we had to do national service in our days, so we had to come do 2 years in the army or navy. I was in the navy here in the Western Cape, so I did my 2 years here. Also played water polo. Sport was the one way you could get out of all the dangerous stuff. So we all played our sport if we could. And then I stayed in the Western Cape. My parents moved around here in Namibia, and eventually also my dad was born in the Western Cape, so he came back here. Um, I then took up coaching, carried on playing, and eventually ended up coaching at a high level with Marty's water polo. I coached their men's senior sides for 3-4 years. And at the same time, I was coaching the Western Cape, the provincial side, the ladies' A and B sides. Then my family started, so I had to back away from coaching a bit. Um, and then I got into helping out with schools and what have you, and I've carried on at my club. I joined Rondebosch after playing for Stellenbosch and what have you for many years. I think I've been there 18 or 19 years now, I think, at Rondebosch. I eventually, after 2-3 years, I took over as chairman. When we started out as a club, we had two teams, a first and a second team, and that time in the Western Cape there was only two leagues, a first league and a second league. By the time I left, which was a year and a half, 2 years ago, we now have 7 sides in 4 different leagues. So we've grown, and we grew on purpose. A lot of people focus only on the top side. They want the elite players and more of the elite. We focused on both ends of the market. We try to grow our elite, but we focused very much on growing the social side of the sport, getting more people back to it in their 30s and 40s, come back and enjoy and make it fun, you know. Um, and then, funny enough, because we're connected to the Rondebosch High School, we started to pull in the junior teams through our playing with our senior, our older players. So as low as under 14, we stopped the under 13s coming in. They were just too small, too light, you know, in the water. So we got the under 14s in, and we've slowly developed. We've had players come through us that have played with us I call us the old players, and moved through to play with the elite players and gone to represent the country. So as a club, we're strong. We're one of the biggest in the country. Um, our leagues in the Western Cape, very similar story. When I first started out, again, I eventually took over and ran the Western Cape, which we have 15 teams, 15 clubs now, men's and ladies together. The ladies is only one division. There's seasons where we get 2 divisions, but generally it's one. In the men's, we now have 4 divisions, so Premier, First, Second, and Thirds. COVID hit us. We lost a whole division during COVID. In fact, we lost a division and a half. We almost back to our post-COVID, pre-COVID numbers now. So as a league, I would say between us and Johannesburg are the 2 strongest leagues. in the country. And that's borne out if you go to the Gauteng Invitational. We had 2 sides in the final, men's and ladies, not Rondebosch, Western Cape. The ladies won it. The Rondebosch side lost, but lost to another Western Cape team. It was Sax Old Boys. So, and then if you go to Masters in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it was all Western Cape teams. So as a Western Cape, we're strong. We've grown our numbers. Yeah. So that's pretty much my history within that. I've stepped out of, as I said to you previously, I've stepped out of running Western Cape and running my club simply because of the hassles we've had with SWIM South Africa. Yeah.
Okay. So you were speaking about the correlation between the high school and the club. So you are saying that like young water polo is managed by both clubs and schools, or is something more complicated?
It's predominantly the schools that run it. So schools will have they split it. The prep, we call it the preparatory school, and then we have the high school. So the prep school will have under 9, under 10, under 11, under 12, and under 13. Yeah, and then high school has under 14 to under 18, and then from that high school, we will have about 5-8% of kids come and play in club. Less in the junior years, but more in the senior years. So as they start to make provincial teams and national teams, they come to us so that they get in a higher level than they can get in school. Yeah.
Okay. How do kids get to know about water polo, and how do you convince them to start playing, and at which age they start playing water polo in South Africa?
Yeah. So we're a bit different to Europe. We have a schools that runs, as Ryan explained to you, the schools runs very strong. And then club is usually senior water polo, usually. So they hear about it. It's monkey see, monkey do. They go to school and they just see lots of kids playing. They start, as I said, it's beautiful. It's absolutely, the only problem with it is the other sports get a bit cross with us because in South Africa we have a sport called cricket. It used to be very, very big, specifically at schools. They lose so many kids now because the kid would rather come to play water polo where, it's a 20-minute game or a 40-minute practice or an hour practice, whereas a game of cricket is the whole afternoon, and some days they play 5 days in a row and still end up at 0. So anyway, it's growing, and it boys, girls, both of them. It's mushroomed at school level. One of the guys that did an analysis of this is, I can't confirm whether it's true, but he's saying within South Africa we have the highest number of junior water polo players, so under 18 and below. At our national event, I think there's over 100. There's 1,600 kids playing, wow. And I think the number of teams I'm saying is it's essentially under 13, under 14, under 16, and under 18, boys and girls. And there's usually between 8 and 12 teams per age group, per gender. So it's the biggest event that we know of altogether. So we're very strong there. And Ryan's 100% correct. We are phenomenally strong. And if we select national teams and they come and play in the European tournaments, they're on par, very on par with the other players at that age group. It's unfortunately thereafter that we fall down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what's the reason why after the high school age, let's say after the teenage, they
Yeah.
stop playing, they can't like grow up and became professional water polo players?
So there's a number of answers. The first answer is normal in all sports. I mean, in football, in rugby, we have rugby here. It's massive. Rugby in this country is huge at school level, and they have a similar fall off. So the first reason is it's natural. At school, it's what all the other kids are doing. You do it. You finish school, you go to university, or you go to Technicon, or you start working. It's not as formal, so you have a natural fall off. So that's the first reason, and that's all sport, not just water polo. Our main problem, though, is that we come from a massively a very structured environment at school. Trainings are organized, parents take you, tournaments are organized, your year is planned in advance. We go from that to a very unstructured situation where our clubs, because we are not professional, there's no ability for professional water polo in this country. There's no money, so we have a massive drop off, and unfortunately, our players come from where they arrive. The coach is telling them everything, to arriving at a club practice, and it's okay, guys, do your own warm up, get yourselves ready, and then things happen. And that helps us lose more. The next aspect of why we lose is the top players. The top players have been in a system where they get chosen for national teams, and the process to choose, the process to announce, and then the actual experience that they receive in that national setup is so bad that by the time they've done an under 14 and under 16 and under 18 and under 20, they don't want to be part of it anymore. So our system crushes the very people we're supposed to fix, which is one of the main reasons this whole split has happened, to try and rectify that. So those, I would say, are the three main reasons. There's no professional, we naturally lose, and then the system that's in place. Take an example. There's a tournament happening this weekend for under 15 and under 17. They've been asked to go to Zimbabwe, which is a sort of a 2-hour flight from Johannesburg, and they must pay. They were only told about this on the 19th of March. Okay,
Wow.
so an announcement goes out, we're going to a tournament and we're selecting teams. By the 21st of March, they must have paid, we have rands here, 25,000 rands, which is about 1,200 euro.
Wow.
Okay, to travel for a 3-day tournament in Zimbabwe. Now, I'm not disrespecting Zimbabwe. I was born there. I love the place. But their water polo is weak. When they come to our schools event, the same kids came 11th, 12th out of 13 teams in their age groups. So we're, as a national team, going to play against a team that lost to our provincial teams, our regional teams, is what you would call it. Lost and came 11th, 12th. We're taking an A and a B team to go and play them. It's costing us 25,000 rand. The selection process was abysmal. And so that player that makes it or doesn't make it is saying, is this really what I want to be part of? And we do that too often to them. At all our levels. So that's the example, if you want to use one that's right there in front of us.
Then maybe I think another problem can be that you haven't in the neighborhood like some nations with high level water polo to play against. Like in Europe, we are developing water polo really good at like a top level because we are a lot of nations with great players that can play against each other. There is the Champions League, there is the European Cup, and like in other part of the world, it's harder. Like in the United States, they came to Europe to play, and they have like a sort of league. They have college, but the level it's not this high, like in Champions League. And in the other part of the world, it's hard to develop water polo for a nation without a neighborhood of nations where the water polo is growing. Do you think this is another reason for the low level of South African water polo?
100% correct. At a junior level, as I say, if we prepare correctly and we come to your European tournaments, we do well at a junior level, so under 18 and down. It's at under 20 and up that we start to lose. But you're 100% right. For us to come to Europe, it's a 10-hour flight. And that's I would say maybe 2,500, 3,000 euro for us to travel to come to visit you. So the way the Americans have done it, the way the Australians have done it, is to get their players into clubs like Pro Reco and come and play at a high level so that they can maintain that. Many years ago, I went to, I tried to play water polo professionally. I went to Hungary, and I tried to play with Eger. Unfortunately, it was still before apartheid was finished. So legally, I wasn't allowed to play because South Africa was banned. But what I learned there by playing with those players, because I trained with them for 6-7 months, and we actually came back to South Africa and had a training camp in South Africa. And after them training with us, they played against our provincial players. They said, Brett, these guys, they're physical. They can play. They're generally very good swimmers, South Africans. So they have all the attributes to play. The problem is they train too little and they don't have enough time to compete. So as you say, in Europe, you can travel for 2 hours and go and see 3 different cities and play. For us, it's 10 hours. So we can't do it. So you're 100% right. That is one of the things. We can manage it better. And that's what we haven't done because we don't plan it. We don't have the system to plan it. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's a matter of system because you have to create something where players compete and best players compete with best players, and everyone can learn from them and can rise their level because they see like good players playing, they play against good players. So yes, maybe it's a system problem. What do you think can be a solution to like manage this situation in South Africa, because you can't like move to South Africa near Europe, so you have like to manage this in another way? I think like United States, it's good because they have the NCAA and they send the best players to Europe, and so maybe a solution can be to create a great level league there and then send players to Europe.
Yeah, agreed. So we used to have more provincial competition. We used to have a tournament in December and then a tournament in April. And that meant that your year was, you had intensity through 2 sections of that year. So one, we have to fix that local league, and we have to have a provincial league. But remember, for me to go to Johannesburg is a 2-hour flight. So it's not It's not on a bus. Like in Eger, you jump on a bus and 40 minutes later you're in Budapest and you can play 3-4 different teams. So that's cost and distance is our problem. But I think also managing what we have and the opportunity we have better. So inviting more teams to come to South Africa rather than spending these teams going to Zimbabwe now. It's almost 2 million rand that we're spending, parents are spending, to get 4 teams to go to Zimbabwe, when we could spend that money to bring teams to South Africa. And by teams coming to South Africa to do training camps, etc., that exposes our teams to that level easier. We can have 10 of our teams meeting 2 of European teams, which is a better spend, value for money. And then when we do our overseas tours, our problem currently is we don't plan until the very last minute. So World Cup in December 2024, that team was announced 2 weeks before. There was no training, there was no preparation, there was no build-up. They were announced 2 weeks before. They had a coach appointed a week before. They met at the airport and they flew. So you've got the most expensive flight, the most expensive hotel, etc. We know these tournaments are there. So let us prepare that we go there as the Americans and the Canadians do. They go a week or 2 before, play European club teams, and then play your tournament. So if we planned better, because we knew what was happening, we could spend our money better and get more value for that money. So it can happen. I agree. Set up the leagues first and then spend our money better. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the idea of inviting teams from all around the world. Okay, Europe, but also like United States, Australia,
Yeah.
Japan maybe, because South Africa it's a really good place to visit. So maybe if you organize something, 2 weeks with like a week and a half of playing with the local teams and then half a week of just visiting the country, could be a really great idea to raise the level of your teams and to like do a water polo tourism. And I really like this idea.
Yeah, we did that. We brought the after the forget which Olympics, but it was 2013, 2014. We brought some of the USA side out. They came. They ran training clinics at our schools. So to fund it, we had to sell them. So we had kids come and train with them. We got some go on to the Masters webpage. You'll see, and then they played 2 games at our Masters tournament in the evenings against the South African side. And we actually had to limit the number of tickets because people just wanted this exposure. And so it works hell of a well. It can work. We need the system though. And right now there's a discord between the few people at the top and the rest of us at the bottom. And that's what needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, you never speak about the pool problem of many country. Like in many country, you didn't have water space to train your teams, and you never touch it. And so I can suppose that that's not a problem in South Africa.
It is at certain times a year. So it's bad in winter because we have very few indoor pools and heated pools. The heating is expensive, and covering pools is expensive. And for most of our season, we have such beautiful weather that you actually don't want it enclosed. So because we use the facilities at schools, it's not a problem. It's not ideal. It could be better. But because we use schools, most of our schools um, have the fees are expensive for most, and they have a history that they built this during the apartheid years when the government gave them a lot of money. So they built facilities and they've maintained and bettered those facilities. So no, it's not a problem in the areas that play water polo. Where it is a problem is to try and take water polo to new areas and grow our sport into the mass market, because right now it is an elite sport. It is. So to grow it into the mass market, we have to make partnerships with the councils and use their facilities and help become public a private partnership with them. And that's going to take a lot of energy and work. It's doable, but it's not a snap of the fingers thing. But for now, I would say we're quite lucky. If you look at the tournaments that happened this weekend, all at a private school, they have two 30-meter pools and one 50-meter pool. Wow. So the facilities are, and it's all heated. It's outdoors, and it was cold because it happened to rain the whole weekend. But it's the facilities are good. We for the existing lot. But we need to change that if we're going to change our sport. Yeah.
And so facilities are run by schools. What about clubs? Where do they train?
So all our clubs make a partnership with a school, either hire the facilities as a straightforward hire, or they do it. We call it Old Boys. So SACS is a school, and then SACS Old Boys is the club. And then SACS helps with the coaching and what have you, and gets to use the facility for their training, etc. So it's a sharing. Schools, when they finish at 5:30, 6, and then the clubs come in from 6 to 8 at night. Yeah.
Okay. So facilities are run mainly by schools. Maybe this is another problem for the to become professionals for players in clubs, because clubs can't run pools. They can't decide when to train. They can't train, I think, 2 times in a day. So maybe this is another obstacle.
Yep. Yeah. It is an obstacle. And as I say, it's a partnership that we've got because there are no other facilities, and to build facilities is just too much for a club. Most of our clubs, the money we raise from fees goes to running the club that year, and there's nothing. There's a little bit left over, but it's not that we have sponsors that put money in. I know in Hungary they had individuals or companies that would come and sponsor. We don't have that. There's no money in the sport for us. So for now, yes, it's a golden handcuff. It's great that we have a nice facility, but yes, we don't get to do everything a professional club would want to do.
Okay, and now I want to talk with you about the independent body that you had to create, the South African water polo. Can you tell me about this independent body, and why this body is splitting with the Swimming Federation of South Africa?
Okay, so it's been there for a while, this need that water polo is not running itself within the existing structure. The Swimming South Africa is the overrider, and they govern all the disciplines below it, pretty similar to what you guys have in Italy. The difference is that no discipline. So water polo, diving's, artistic, long distance, none of them have a seat on the board, the executive board, and none of them run themselves. They have what's called a technical committee, but that committee is appointed by the mother body, by SAWP South Africa. So I don't have a vote as a member as to who's going to run my sport. And this has happened in the Constitution, it actually says that the members should vote 50%, just under 50%, onto these committees. It hasn't happened for 15, 20 years. So what's happened is you have people, good people, I'm not saying they're bad human beings, but we have people that are running our sport that are not necessarily water polo people. So I got onto that technical committee a number of years ago. I actually didn't want to be on. I was asking that we put other people on because I was running Western Cape and I felt running two things, it would be too much. Needless to say, I was put on. And again, no vote, it's an appointment. Swimming South Africa says we are putting Brett and Mateo on. That's it. And there's no way for the member to say, we don't want Brett and Mateo, we want Harry and Barry, you know. So that's the weakness of the system. And secondly, there are 5 people trying to run a sport nationally. It's too few. So what happens is there's no communication, there's no discussion. Water polo has not had a general meeting where they all meet together and say, let's plan our calendar. Let's decide when we will have nationals, etc., etc. This hasn't happened for 10, 15 years. So what happened was after I got appointed to this committee in 2019, there was in Durban a conference, a water polo conference, not of everyone, but of selected people. And in that conference, there was a lot of unhappiness in water polo at that point. And the president of the Swimming Federation came along and said, look, let's get together and let's find a way to fix water polo. And he then created these committees that would do this. But unfortunately, no committee had power. So the technical committee just overruled everything that was proposed and put forward. And everyone in the committees below just said, look, I'm not going to serve on this thing if I have no real voice, if the person on the executive and the technical committee can just overrule. So COVID then started, and I then got all the people that were at that conference together online, and I said, guys, we have this time. Let's put a plan together that'll get water polo going. So I became like the sheepdog that barks at the herd to try get the herd to go forward, okay? Because this thing was sitting doing nothing. We got people, legal people. We got the presidents of all the water polo provinces together. We said, okay, how will this thing work? And there were 2 choices that we had. One, we would go to SAWP South Africa, the body, and say to SAWP South Africa, you need to allow us this to.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and for your point of view. I really enjoyed this